We're going to call the meeting for Akron City Council to order. At this time, our clerk will read the roll.
Baylor. Aye. Connor. Aye. Freeman. Aye. Fusco. Aye. Holland. Aye. Kamer. Aye. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal. Omobian. Aye. Somerville.
Aye.
All members are present.
For those who voluntarily wish to do so, will you please stand at this time as we are led in prayer by Councilman Neal, and immediately following our prayer, we're going to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance. Going to ask if Councilwoman Baylor could lead us.
Thank you, Councilman Lombardo. I'm going to read a CIFA, which is a praise, which is in Ward 4, where we try to practice collective work and responsibility. It's something that we read to affirm the work that we do. It says, may we always remember those who have gone before us. May we be inspired by their vision and their valor. May their lives continuously remind us that service is more important than success, that people are more important than possessions, and that principle is more important than power. May whatever we do be shaped and molded by honesty, competence, and commitment. May our children and our children's children carry forth with pride the nobility of our history and tradition. And now to the creator of all of us, we dedicate our lives to make this world, this city, better and more beautiful. Ashe.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes from our previously held meeting have been provided. Are there any additions or corrections?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Roll call on final passage. Baylor, Connor, Freeman, Fusco, Holland, Kamer, Lombardo, McKittrick, Malik, Mosley, Neal, Omobian, Somerville. The minutes pass 12-0 with one abstention.
Okay. Before you, you have a copy of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Roll call on final passage. Baylor, Connor, Freeman, Fusco, Holland, Kamer, Lombardo, McKittrick, Malik, Mosley, Neal, Omobian, Somerville, and the consent agenda passes 13-0.
Okay. We do have two public hearings scheduled for this evening. Our clerk will read in item number 1.
Notice is hereby given that the following public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, November 7th, 2022, during the regular council meeting at 7 p.m. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct an automated car wash facility on George Washington Boulevard, south of East Waterloo Road.
Mr. Antonucci?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of council. GetGo Portfolio 2LP is proposing to construct a car wash at this property. The proposed automated single-bay car wash would be oriented roughly parallel with East Waterloo Road. The 3,500 square foot structure would consist of a conveyor car wash, office space, and a mechanical room. The revised circulation pattern allows for 2 lanes of queuing along the south side of the facility, while 14 vacuum spaces and 6 standard parking spaces will be located along the north and west side of the development. A entry drive is provided from the existing GetGo Drive near George Washington Boulevard. The proposed change to the previously approved gasoline service station and car wash should have a negligible difference in its impact on the surrounding area. The attractive building and landscaping will complement the adjacent business use, and the proposed layout meets all development requirements of the zoning code. In 2015, City Council approved the construction of the convenience store and gas station, which included the car wash as a future addition. The car wash was never built, and these plans have been modified from the original. The proposed new car wash at this intersection will be beneficial to the area residents as well as the motoring public. Office of Integrated Development, Planning Staff, and Planning Commission recommend approval, subject to conditions.
Thank you. We're now going to open up our public hearing. Do we have anyone here in the audience who wishes to speak in favor or against item number 1? If we do, just going to ask that you can please stand at this time so that you may be sworn in by a member of our law department. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor or against item number 1? Seeing and hearing none, we will close our public hearing. Councilman Fusco, what is the committee's pleasure?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to pull the committee for a favorable report with suspension of the rules. Kamer. Aye. Connor. Aye. Baylor.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Yes, thank you. This is, I know the ward council representative is in favor of this particular conditional use request. It seems as though that this is an existing, as was mentioned, gas and convenience store. Whenever it was first introduced, and we had passed it some years ago, car wash was part of that, and they've made some adjustments and tweaks to that. And so we've reviewed it this afternoon and had a good exchange, and we're asking for passage this evening.
Okay, thank you so much. If there are no objections, the rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Roll call on final passage. Baylor, Connor, Freeman, Fusco, Holland, Kamer, Lombardo, McKittrick, Malik, Mosley, Neal, Amobian, Somerville, and the ordinance passes 13-0. I see that the petitioner has just joined us online.
Okay.
Notice is hereby given that the following public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, November 7th, 2022, during the regular council meeting at 7 p.m. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct a Starbucks on East Waterloo Road, east of George Washington Boulevard.
Mr. Antonucci?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of council. Butterfly Holdings is requesting permission to construct a Starbucks at this location directly east of the Chipotle Mexican Grill. Prior to the development of the Chipotle property in 2018, the property was replatted into two separate parcels with the intention of developing this property in the future. The proposed development for this property will include a 2,200 square foot building with a drive-through and pickup window on the west side, seating for approximately 30 people inside, an outdoor patio with seating for 12 on the south side of the building, and parking for 48 vehicles to the north, east, and south of the building. The submitted site plan depicts landscape buffers of at least 5 feet from the front property line and a minimum of 10 feet from each side yard. Ingress and egress would be from an existing access drive constructed for the Chipotle in 2018. The new restaurant would employ approximately 18 full and part-time employees. Hours of operation would be 5:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Planning staff's of the opinion that the proposed Starbucks development would not be out of character with the surrounding uses, should not have a negative impact, and Office of Integrated Development, Planning Staff, and Planning Commission recommend approval, subject to conditions.
Thank you. We're now going to open up our public hearing. Do we have anyone here in the audience who wishes to speak for or against item number 2? Anyone here wishing to speak for or against item number 2? You can please stand. Seeing and hearing none, we'll close our public hearing. Councilman Fusco, what's the committee's pleasure?
Yes, I'd like to pull the committee for a favorable report and with suspension of the rules.
Okay.
Kamer. Aye. Connor. Aye. Baylor.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Okay. Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, thank you, President Somerville. This is, as mentioned, a Starbucks going in on East Waterloo Road directly next to the Chipotle location. Quite a bit of discussion this afternoon. Part of the discussion, which is interesting and I believe we're all comfortable with, is the stacking of the vehicles as they wait to get served. I know the Ward Council Representative, Mr. McKittrick, is in favor of this, but it seems as though there is an adequate amount of space on site, and plus I believe it's the same developer that has the Chipotle, so there's also room to queue up there as well. So I believe this is a very good use of this property, and we're recommending approval this evening.
Okay, thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Roll call on final passage. Baylor, Connor, Freeman, Fusco, Holland, Kamer, Lombardo, McKittrick, Malik, Mosley, Neal, Amobian, Somerville, and the ordinance passes 13-0.
And before we move into our old business, we do have some special guests here with us this evening. We do have the Mayor's Youth Leadership Council here, so we're so happy to see them in the audience, so many young people. And we have Mrs. Myra Snipes, I do believe, who's going to introduce them.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you got a chance to see the wonderful video that was produced. Since COVID, we've not had an opportunity to meet in person, but we are back, and I just wanted council to know that these young folks are active in the community, and they represent all of our schools, public schools, and some private schools. So if you all can stand up, and I'm proud to say that we have some of our alumni back, if you saw the video, that have volunteered to come back to help. They will be leading the meetings with two special committees that we want to come back and hear the voice of the youth. One is our Parks and Recreation, often asking, what can we do? Bryce Harris, where you at, Bryce? Bryce was a former alumni, currently a school counselor, graduate from University of Toledo, and he is going to be, he's alumni, he's going to be leading our Parks and Recreation. So Bryce, again, I'm so happy he's coming back. And we also have some alumni of the Mayor Youth Leadership Council that will be leading our teen and health and financial literacy. And last but not least, we have a committee which will talk about violence and hearing from our youth. So these youth, just a representative, we have over 75 students that are actively involved in serving on the committee. So stay tuned. Our big Giving Back Community Hugs and Gloves is coming up November, December, where we will give out hats, gloves, socks to folks in the community. So again, this is just a sample of our students that are doing great things in the community.
And to our young people, we are really excited and proud about the great work that you are doing. And please come back and share with us, you know, your feedback in terms of Parks and Rec and violence, because we need to hear from you guys. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you. So we're going to continue with our old business, Planning and Economic Development. Councilman Fusco.
Thank you, President Somerville. The request of committee is for, excuse me, time on 3 through and including 10. And the report of the committee on item 11 is favorable, and we're asking for passage. This is the sale of city-owned land. There were some questions previously. I believe they've all been resolved. So therefore, we're recommending approval this evening.
Okay, thank you so much. So the committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Roll call on final passage. Baylor, Connor, Freeman, Fusco, Holland, Kamer, Lombardo, McKittrick, Malik, Mosley, Neal, Amobian, Somerville, and the ordinance passes 13-0.
Councilman Fusco?
Thank you. Time on 12 through and including 15. The request of committees file 16 and 17. Those are the two we just voted on. Time on 18 through and including 24. And I'd like to pull the committee for a, excuse me, a favorable report on item 25. Kamer? Aye. Connor? Aye. Baylor?
Aye.
Mosley? Yes, thank you. This is referenced the short-term rental program that we just had passed last week, and this is more of the accounting side of it. So we recommend approval this evening.
Okay, thank you so much. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Roll call on final passage. Baylor, Connor, Freeman, Fusco, Holland, Kamer, Lombardo, McKittrick, Malik, Mosley, Neal, Amobian, Somerville, and the ordinance passes 13-0.
The
Councilman
requested
Fusco?
committees for time on 26 through and including 38. The committee requests that we file 39 and 40. The petitioner is changed the, matter of fact, just took out permits, I believe, for a different type of use than what was proposed originally. So therefore, we're withdrawing that, basically filing it. And then time on 41. Thank you.
Okay, time will be granted. We're going to continue with old business rules. Councilman Freeman.
Time on item 1. And then item 2, the committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for passage.
Okay. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're going to do a roll call.
Baylor. Connor. Freeman. Fusco. Holland. Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick. Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Nay.
Neal. Amobian.
Nay.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 8-5.
Okay. We're now going to move to public service. Councilwoman Mosley.
Thank you, Madam President. Continue time on 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, time will be granted. Public safety, Councilman Kamer.
Thank you, Madam President. Item number 1 is committee's report of suspension of the rules, please, with a favorable report.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you. This is our general provisions for fire prevention, moving forward with amending our ordinance to require carbon monoxide detectors in new and current structures.
Okay. Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Roll call on final passage. Baylor, Connor, Freeman, Fusco, Holland, Kamer, Lombardo, McKittrick, Malik, Mosley, Neal, Amobian, Somerville, and the ordinance passes 13-0.
Councilman Kamer.
Thank you, Madam President. Item number 2, committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules, please.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you. This is our ordinance amending land usage and rooming houses under our health housing code to basically move forward with requiring carbon monoxide detectors in residential structures.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Roll call on final passage. Baylor, Connor, Freeman, Fusco, Holland, Kamer, Lombardo, McKittrick, Malik, Mosley, Neal, Amobian, Somerville, and the ordinance passes 13-0.
That concludes our old business for this evening. We'll now move into new legislation.
Item number 1, offered by Freeman, ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of notes in a principal amount not exceeding $13 million to pay the property owner's portion in anticipation of the levy and collection of special assessments of the cost of improving certain streets in the city between certain termini by providing street cleaning services and street lighting and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman.
Committee's requested to place this item on the consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 2, offered by Freeman, ordinance amending ordinance number 81, 2022, passed March 28, 2022, which established the annual appropriation for the current expenses, other expenditures, and the capital outlays of the City of Akron for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman.
Committee wishes to refer this item to the agenda next week and would also encourage anyone would have any questions about the changes that have been done to the budget because of costs, because of inflation and whatnot, to please contact Mr. Wheeler next week.
Thank you. This item will be referred.
Item number 3, offered by Councilman Neal, resolution urging the City of Akron to allocate 10% of its American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funding, for the provision of holistic community wraparound support in conjunction with Akron Public Schools and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman.
The committee issued an adverse report.
Okay, thank you so much. I do see the sponsor, Councilman Neal, wants to bring some comments.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Appreciate and heard the comments this afternoon, and honestly, I was disturbed by the fact that council didn't take the opportunity to read the brief. The politics down here is obvious. I mean, because I get calls from people who watch and see and can't believe some of the things that are done. But folks, we got kids dying on the street. A young man was just stabbed at a school in your ward. What are you doing? What are we doing to support one of the greatest investments we have, which is our children? This resolution isn't about me. It's not even about Ward 4. This is bringing money into each one of the clusters. If any of you are in tune on what's going on in our schools, you know the stress. Mr. McKittrick, I know you probably hear it every night, that our teachers and the administration inside our buildings are on. The stress that's coming from our communities into the schools. This is a compilation of 15 years worth of work, not just my work in the community, documented by hospitals, our healthcare department, our school system, where we've partnered with the city, the County and Jobs and Family Services, the police department, and Kent State University. Much research has gone into this. And this isn't bringing money into just Ward 4. This is bringing money so that every cluster will have the resources to build the infrastructure to support not just the schools, but our community. Right now, based on the opportunity that we have as council people, the money that we could bring into our ward directly is less than 1/10 of 1%. 1/10 of 1% to come into our ward. I see some are confused. $143 million. 14 million is 10%. 1.4 would be 1%. $140,000 would be 1%. We had an opportunity to apply for a grant of $100,000. That's less than 1/10 of 1% to deal with all the challenges that we have in our ward. So, I mean, I can understand the questions, but to not even take the time, not to look at my work, but the work of the community, something that's been endorsed by the school system. By the school system as a plan for one of the schools in their ward, Buchtel High School. So, you know, I understand that there's a place for politics, folks. But we're talking about children's lives, literally children's lives. And we haven't put anything forward to address this. The money that's going to the organizations is great. But we have to provide the infrastructure to make this work sustainable. And that's what this would allow, not just the Buchtel cluster, but the Elliott cluster, the East cluster, the Kimmel Garfield cluster, the North cluster, and yes, the Firestone cluster, because all of our schools receive 100% free lunch. So that would make some communities that normally wouldn't qualify for these ARPA funds able to qualify. So, you know, I heard the comments this afternoon, I would be able to respect them more if the time was taken to at least give consideration to the work from the entire community that went into that proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional comments at this time? The committee's report is adverse, so all in favor of an adverse report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're going to do a roll call.
Baylor?
Aye.
Connor? Freeman? Fusco? Holland? Kamer? Lombardo?
Aye.
McKittrick? Malik?
Aye.
Mosley?
Nay.
Neal?
Nay.
Amobian?
Nay.
Somerville?
Aye.
The motion for an adverse report passes 10-3. Item number 4, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to negotiate, enter into, execute, and deliver agreements and/or other documents in connection with the sale and development of 959 Dayton Street, Akron, Ohio 44310, consisting of approximately 2.73 acres of city-owned land located between Pitkin Avenue and Dayton Street in the North Hill neighborhood, existing as Summit County parcel number 6708941, authorizing the sale of said property to Krazy Homes Incorporated, determining said property is not needed for public use, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you. The report of the committee is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you, President Somerville. Excuse me. This is for the sale of property that's 959 Dayton Street. This is the developers promised 16 homes to be developed on this particular property. I know this has been some time in the making, and I don't know if Mr. Lombardo would have some comments or not, but we're recommending approval this evening. This will be great for the neighborhood.
Thank you. Councilman Lombardo?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, definitely a great addition to the neighborhood. Right now, Ward 2 has expanded, as you can see from the census, so the need for those homes and what Krazy Homes is going to do for that neighborhood would be a big boost, so thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Roll call on final passage. Baylor, Connor, Freeman, Fusco, Holland, Kamer, Lombardo, McKittrick, Malik, Mosley, Neal, Amobian, Somerville, and the ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 5 is offered by Mayor Horrigan and Councilman Freeman. Resolution opposing the parole of convicted murderer Arkmail Sales and urging the Ohio Parole Board to deny his request for release and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Thank you, President Somerville. Committee's report is time. Thanks.
Okay, time will be granted. That concludes our new legislation for this evening. We'll now go to the portion of our meeting that we refer to as our public comment period. If you are here in the audience and wish to participate in public comment period, I'm going to ask that you please stand at this time so that you may be sworn in by a member of our law department.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth? If so, please respond by saying, I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to start with Megan Lugo.
Megan Lugo, 45 Mayfield Avenue. Last week, approximately 60 people attended a citizen-led meeting on White Pond Reserve, an upscale mixed-use development slated for West Akron. While a few of us will send to you a summary of that meeting, I will share with you that people are angry and they are disappointed. As a citizen facilitator of that meeting, I have 3 personal requests. Create a system that incorporates citizen voices into development in our city pass a resolution declaring your concerns with the development, including White Pond Reserve, and if the sale of this land goes up for a vote, vehemently oppose it. To elaborate on the first request, create a formalized system by the end of the year that fixes the one we have, one in which, for the Crosby Homes item tonight, only involves the mayor's office and the developers, and replace it with one that gives citizens equitable voice, power, and time with all developments in our city. And I say equitable because citizens will live with the effects of these choices for decades after the developers and indeed some city officials are gone. We should therefore have more time than the landlords, developers, and businesses instead of the current system which gives them years in the obsequiousness of the city officials while we get 3 minutes in the city's disdain. Indeed, if the city had incorporated citizens in the process for White Pond Reserve, it would know, for example, what we learned this weekend, that a bald eagle appears to have a habitat in the trees that will be cut down for White Pond Reserve, a name whose irony is not lost on me. Second, pass a resolution articulating what many of you have indicated. You wish you had known about the environmental impact, or the lack of traffic study, or that citizens didn't want this. Declare your concerns and pass a resolution within 2 weeks before it is too late, and the last tree that constitutes an urban forest enjoyed by the many is leveled for the benefit of the few. Finally, I will concede a bit of frustration regarding this final point. We only just learned today, after weeks of voicing our concerns, that you all may still have to approve this sale through a council vote. To my earlier point about citizen involvement, if this is true, why did no one tell us? Why again have you kept us out of a process that will affect hundreds of people? If it does come up for a vote, you must first inform everyone within a 1-mile radius of White Pond 2 weeks in advance. A couple of us with flyers could get 60 people. We can help you if need be. You owe it to the people you have cut out of this. If it does come up for a vote, you must oppose the sale of this land. Stand with the people for once, instead of the developers and a city looking to bolster its already inequitable and poorly managed budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Andrea?
My name's Andrea Niekamp. I live at 70 White Pond, and I'm an introvert, and I've never talked in something like this, so bear with me if I shake. Last Wednesday, I attended a meeting with more than 60 local residents at the Northwest Akron Branch Library. It was a heated meeting with many concerns regarding the impending development on White Pond Drive and Frank Boulevard. Many residents voiced concern about developing on a wetland, the reality that most of the trees will be raised, the impending traffic issues, and the fact that our city representatives pushed this through so quickly. During the summer, when our city was embroiled in real actual emergencies, including the police shooting of Jalen Walker, the ensuing protests and arrests, as well as the tragic fight at the I Promise school, the emergency our council members found to be worth pursuing was the resolution to allow the development of 60 acres of forested wetlands and peat bogs. Residents during this time were given 3 months to protest this development, although many, myself included, were unaware. Yet the developers had well over a year to beat behind closed doors with city officials. During these meetings, Triton Property Ventures, who are not tax-paying Akron residents and have no history of managing the construction of major developments, negotiated a 15-year tax abatement for themselves as the properties are rental, as well as wetland credits and proceeds from the 60 acres of trees that will be raised. Although I have asked questions in correspondence with several council members, I again ask, where are the environmental impact studies? Where are the studies showing the demand and necessity for high-priced luxury apartments as well as high-end storefronts in West Akron? Who is in favor of this development besides the administration and developers? What is being done to protect the endangered species who have been found on this land in past environmental studies? Why aren't traffic studies being done? What will the impact to local neighborhoods, including mine, be when the trees and wetlands are removed from 60 acres of naturally saturated land? Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I'm just going to ask if you can please, no clapping. Thank you, thank you. The last name is Colette. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce the first name. Last name Colette? No one here in the audience by that name? It's Scribbly. Oh, that's you? Okay.
Put my rock in my pocket. Good evening, everyone. 2022 has been quite the year for bringing the corruption of the city of Akron to the forefront of public consciousness. I've been meditating on it, and it is my sincere belief that Akron has a cruelty problem. It is no wonder, considering the origin story, as this city was founded on stolen land, forcibly taken from the indigenous peoples who originally lived in the Cuyahoga Valley. It was stolen from people whose tribal histories and identities were intertwined with the land itself, such as the Seneca, and from those who created new homes here as refugees of colonial violence in the East, all to create farmland and then, eventually, an acropolis city, Akron, a fortress at the highest point of this land, so-called Ohio. Recent happenings in the city continue to reflect this violence on the many kinds of people who live here today. Why has there been no action to shelter and support the growing houseless population in Akron? We have fellow human beings who are about to be freezing in our streets and parks this winter, while we as a city have ample housing for all. Why are slumlords allowed to get away with poisoning, psychologically torturing, endangering, and now murdering the citizens who trust them, who pay them most of their income to provide safe, clean housing? And what of the 8 murderers who killed Jalen Walker, who are being harbored by the Akron police force? Justice for Jalen, justice for all the people who have been harmed, and justice to those being actively harmed now by the city's malice and apathy to the poor and marginalized. This cruelty even reflects in how we treat the land itself. The White Pond Development Plan is a perfect example of Akron's senseless violence on all living things, not just humans. No traffic, environmental, or economic impact studies were completed before or after the design's approval. The tax abatement program, hailed as redlining 2.0, allows these developers to wave money in the city's face and snatch up land that is treasured by those who live all around it, who will be the most affected by it. Akron needs this natural air, water, and sound pollution filter more than it needs another high-priced rental and housing area that will sit empty. You cannot build anything long-lasting in a bog, even if you cut down every single tree and scoop out all of the rich organic matter that lies within. What of the other creatures who call White Pond home? I don't give a damn what the Army Corps of Engineers says. It makes me sick to my stomach at the suggestion of cutting down the trees when the endangered Indiana bats have left for the season. What they will return to will be their missing ancestral homes in a stalled construction site, as this developer is attempting to pay for this doomed project all out of pocket. This bog is a treasure that Akron is blessed to have amongst a world of dwindling biodiversity, hosting rare species such as the golden tree frog, the bats, and now potentially a bald eagle. The irresponsibility of this project knows no bounds, and everyone who approved of it or did nothing as it passed by them should take some time to study the impacts of soil health, and then fight like hell to stop this. Yes, even if the developer Triton gave you kickbacks. The time for excuses and apathy is done. Stop doubling down and rationalizing poor decisions. The best apology is changed behavior. You can all choose to do better, be better at any time. We all can. Why not right now? Like Megan said, listen to us. Listen to the people who know what's best and needed to alleviate the harm from unjust systems they live under. The people of Akron intend to create.
And I'm so sorry, but your 3 minutes are up. But thank you so much for sharing.
Justice for Jalen. Happy Indigenous Peoples Month.
Sterling.
Hello all, my name is Sterling Schreiber. I reside at 1201 East Market Street, Ward 10. I'm here today to speak against the development of 60-plus acres of city-owned land off of White Pond. I would hope that most of us here, members of the public, members of the council, members of the mayor's cabinet, all recognize the importance of environmentalism, all recognize the importance of preserving our very limited urban green space, as well as our pristine natural wilds, wetlands, and forests. And it is for that reason that I'm here to speak out against this development. We have a finite area of land within this city, about 62 square miles, and right now, very little of it is preserved as green space. Very little of it is pristine forest and wetland, such as the property at White Pond. And, you know, I understand the need to develop and redevelop new housing within the city, but I think that right now we have a lot of other opportunities, a lot of better opportunities to do that do not entail ripping out natural wetland. We have so much vacant land, we have so much old industrial land within this city that I think that makes what's going on at White Pond such a travesty. You know, the city's owned this land for, I think, 15 years or more, and it seems to me, I think it seems to a lot of other people here, that this process was all conducted very quickly, and I think there's a lot of members of the public who feel that they did not have an adequate window to give their input. Now, I'm not here tonight to point fingers and talk about what should have been done or what could have been done. I'll simply say that right here, in the present moment, in the present opportunity, I think we have an opportunity to do better. And it's clear that there's a lot of people out there who are unhappy with this development. There's a lot of other people out there who want this land preserved. There's a lot of us who want something else done, and we want to have a discussion on this further. We don't want this land to be sold. We don't want it to be developed. We don't want it to be destroyed and paved over. And I'm asking you this because I believe that City Council and the Mayor are nothing but stewards of the public and stewards of what the public wants done. And I think it's becoming quite clear that this is not what the public wants done with this land. For that reason, I'm asking you to halt this development. I think we're still in the window where that can be done, and at the very least, to have some more discussion, to get some more feedback from the public before we go paving over and destroying this wetland. Thank you.
Sterling, thank you so much for sharing. Harrington Hargrove.
Good evening, Council. All of you know why I'm here. My focus is economic development and the black community. And my concerns is about the community development entitlement block grant. This city has told the black community, we can't have ARPA dollars. You won't give us ARPA dollars. So I'm asking about the community development block grant entitlement program. Are you going to give us those programs? I would like to know that tonight. I've been before this council for over 30 years asking for my community, not just my community, but the black community at large. Community development block grant, 70% is supposed to go to the minority communities, the undeveloped communities, 70%. I've been asking this council, and for 35 years, I've got nothing for my community, nothing. ARPA dollars, you say no. That's a given. I would like to have a letter for that. So if you're going to tell us we can't have community development block grant money, I want to know that tonight so you can give me a letter for that we're not entitled for that. That is my quest for this council. It's ridiculous how you've done us. $500 million this year, and you won't allocate not one dime to us as a community collectively. You won't recognize that we've been discriminated against, red line. You don't our community in Ward 3 has been blighted. It's blighted, the black community. You go over there, Opportunity Park, they're rich. It's two tails of Ward 3, the haves and the have-nots. And just imagine who might be the have-nots. I want this council to imagine. In Ward 3, from Dart Street to Main Street, from Rose Avenue to East Avenue, who's the victims down there? We live there, but you bring people from out of the city and you give them riches. We live there and we're supposed to get these dollars and you won't even give us none. How can that be? Community development block grant, 70% go to the minority communities. 70%. This is what I want this council to know. 70%, and we've got nothing as black people in Ward 3. I've asked you to ride to our community. We're blighted. The black community is blighted, but you go to Dart Street, they're riches. Bright lights, spaghetti warehouse. You give a white developer a $6 million building down there, a $6 million, and you won't give us money to buy a box of nails. We've been excluded. The federal government has to know this. We've been excluded.
Thank you, Mr. Hargrove. Apostolette, I don't think I saw her. George?
What do you think happened? Hold on to it. Ladies and gentlemen of City Council, it's been a while since I sat in this room, and I sat where Mr. Lombardi's sitting quite a few times in 36 years. The faces I see are, for the most part, new. I see a couple familiar faces here, and I thought I saw the Board of Zoning employee. I'm trying to think of his name. It'll come to me in about a half an hour, but I don't think we have that much time. At any rate, I'm here to speak on the project that is slated for West Hill, White Pond Reserve, and the expedients in which it's been passed, and no particular objection to it. It seems to me I came before this council about 50 years ago and applied for a rezoning in North Hill, and it cost me about $30,000 in about a year and a half. That's not moving with expedience. And then I wonder, when I look at this and say to myself, they're changing zoning, they're doing this, they're doing that, and all done within a few months or thereabouts. I haven't followed it that closely. Has enough thought and plans been put in place to make this thing look good 20 years from now? Not tomorrow, not 2 years from now, but 20 years from now? Or are we going to have a bunch of vacant apartments and homes that are nothing that people want at that time, 20 years from now? There's a famous architect by the name of Wright, and he said architecture is not just for beauty, it's for purpose, it's for improving life, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know that Akron is looking at that and saying, are we doing that, or are we selling something cheaply and letting somebody do something that maybe we have regrets about? So what I'm wondering is why, as I said earlier, I had to wait as long as I did before I had a rezoning in North Hill, where Mr. Lombardi lives, by the way, and can attest to what I'm saying, and why this passed so quickly and is spending our money.
Mr. George, I'm sorry, your 3 minutes are up, but we'll be more than happy to talk to you after, too, okay? We'll be around.
I thought all these were pertinent, but...
I'm sorry.
And if I'm not entertaining enough, and if I'm not making sense, you can cut me off.
But please come back. Please come back again, and you'll have another 3 minutes to present to this committee, okay? But your 3 minutes are up.
Well, I had one more comment. May I make that?
I'm sorry, because I had to cut other people's off, too, so we want to be fair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we do have 2 people who are online with us who would like to participate during public comment period. I think we have Peter and David. If you could just please turn on your mics and your cameras, and we'll have someone from law swear you in.
I think my mic is on.
Perfect.
Hey, please take yourself off mute and raise your right hand.
And David, can you take yourself off mute?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth? If so, please respond by saying I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, Peter, we'll start with you.
Sure. I'd like to give the last gentleman any balance of my time if there's any that's possible. My They have been found, I've caught them there, and they've been listed on management plans. I think it's very unwise to go forward with this development for all the reasons, ecological and economic, that have been mentioned before, but this will also add a tremendous burden, possibly in the middle of getting started in actual development, that I don't think anybody, the city or developer, could really sustain or wants. Thanks for your time. That's about a minute. If you could give it to the other guy and finish his last point, that would be great.
Peter, thank you so much. David?
Yep, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm David Lohr. I live at 392 Keith Avenue, 44313. And I want to apologize, but I will admit to some of you who are on council for having Betsy, not the mass harasser, but the harasser who's been sending quite a few emails on the White Pond development over the last few weeks. I want to read a press release from AP News that came out 4 hours ago to begin. With the world on a highway to climate hell with our foot on the accelerator, the United Nations chief on Monday today told dozens of leaders to cooperate or perish, singling out the 2 biggest polluting countries, China and the United States. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres wasn't alone in preaching with tones of fire and brimstone to try to shake up the world's sense of urgency at this year's annual UN Climate Conference. Choose life over death, former U.S. Vice President Al Gore urged. It's not time for moral cowardice. You council has an opportunity for moral courage. We know, and many of us now know as of this weekend, that there is a regular bald eagle visiting to that property on White Pond. I don't think you want to have a headline that says Akron City Council declares bald eagle habitat as blight to expedite what is, this whole quick process. I walk in that property. I use it for cleansing and centering. It is a beautiful property just for humanity, let alone for all the critters, the birds, the species of plants and microbiomes that are in there. There's a whole, as Peter has just mentioned, and he would know far more than me, there's a lot in there that needs to be protected. I don't want to see the city desecrated by us being called the ones who called blight the bald eagle habitat and the need to protect the wetlands which are cleansing the water for Lake Erie and the Cuyahoga River. I think you need to revisit all the biological and ecological issues on this property. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That concludes our public comments for this evening. We're now going to move into committee assignments. Rules, Councilman Freeman. Public Safety, Councilman Kamer. Budget and Finance, Councilman Freeman. Parks and Rec, Councilman Lombardo.
145.
Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco. Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco. Public Service, Councilwoman Mosley.
2 p.m.
Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian.
2:30.
Public Utilities and Green Committee, Councilman Freeman.
2:45.
Is there anything coming before council? I think I saw Councilwoman Amobian's hand first.
Thank you, Madam President. I can certainly tell you that last week I went to this meeting that's being referred to. If I had known just a little bit of the information that I learned the other night, my vote would have been different. I tell you that I had not, and it's my negligence, and I will accept full responsibility for that, of not asking more questions and looking into something like this. But it never occurred to me to ask questions of the administration about the environmental impact of developing this wetland. And I learned so much last week, And if there's any way that, I know that this group is looking at how we can reverse that decision, because it never occurred to me. I can certainly tell you that it's a group like this that we need to take time, let them educate us about things. And I was well educated last week. I can't tell you all of the things I learned, but there was enough there that convinced me that they were quite persuasive in what they were telling us that we shouldn't do. And I thank them for coming down tonight. And again, if I had known just a smidgen of what I learned last week, I would have voted differently. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Amobian. Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Councilwoman Amobian's point, we have all been educated. We had a meeting, some of the residents, with the developer a couple weeks back, and during that meeting, we found out that there's some other wetlands, well, true wetlands based on the developer, that we have a for sale sign on. And so, you know, as we're educated, we may want to look at where we have for sale signs and have those removed so that, you know, we can kind of circumvent some of this at the beginning. Also want to say, educate yourself and please go out and vote tomorrow. And then last but not least, I do want to pay homage to a great soul that was lost last week in the Bookville community, Coach Orlando Green, 52 years old, girls track coach. He was a father to a lot of those daughters, a big brother, won multiple state championships. I think just last year, I don't know if his girls won the state or finished second. So prayers to his family, prayers to the students at that school as they mourn the loss of their coach.
Thank you, Councilman Neal, for sharing. Councilman Malik?
Thank you, Madam President, and hopefully we get through this. Thank you for everyone who's here today to speak with us. I really do appreciate the 50-plus residents who came last week out to the Northwest Family Recreation Center to speak about White Pond and the concerns that have been raised by a number of people. Now, I voted for it, right? All of us around the horseshoe voted for it, and I voted for it after having a lot of discussions with the planning department and with the developer and with other members of council. And I don't think it's true that there's no redeeming value to the project. I think that there's a reasonable argument for developing it. I think there are reasonable arguments for not doing so, right? But the point that did strike me over and over again during that meeting last week, which is something that I said this summer as we talked about this, is that the way that we do this is broken, right? 50 people, if 50, 60 people have concerns, I'm sure there are others who have concerns as well if they knew about it. And I tried, right? When I learned about this at the end of May, I talked about it in June and July and August, and we voted on it in September. And so it didn't happen overnight, but we live in a community with a newspaper that doesn't cover stuff like it used to. We live in a community that's more fractured in communication than ever. And so it's hard to get the word out. It's hard to get information out. And so I was deeply frustrated because a meeting like that should happen before proposals are solicited, not after basically the pillars and the broad strokes of a deal are finalized, when there's little ability to do anything but vote yes or no. Again, I'm not asking for salvation for my vote, but I am underscoring that the process is broken. And the process is broken not just on planning, but on how we talk about safety and how we talk about speeding and how we talk about other things. And we can't snap our fingers and fix it. We can't snap our fingers and allocate $14 million without doing the legwork to get to the point where we can spend that on wraparound services. But I hope that with this particular instance that there are steps we can take. I appreciate the information that the administration has continued to share over the past few weeks as concerns have been raised by more and more residents. I hope that we can meet with residents and the administration and city officials to talk through some of these things in a little bit more detail, because every day the picture becomes a little bit more clearer. Today there were some discussions specifically about the wetlands credits, but I think it's important that the full picture be understood. And I think there are steps that we can take to mitigate some of the concerns, even if the project does move forward. I understand there are some for whom the project should not move forward. But I hope we can have those discussions and that we can look to changing the process as we go forward. This is not the last time we will sell city land to develop it, but we should look to engage people at the front end and not at the back end, because every time something like this happens, and it's happened a couple times since I've been on council, we lose trust, and we lose trust, and we lose trust, even if we had good intentions. And it's especially frustrating when there are good intentions, as there are across this room. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Malik. Councilwoman Mosley, and then Councilman Neal.
Thank you, Madam President. Sometimes I think it's necessary, even when we don't support or agree with an ordinance or resolution, to take time. The one thing that struck me this evening from public comment is endangered species, and that concerns me. These are things that weren't brought to our attention. Today, we took time on a resolution opposing sending a resolution down to a parole board denying someone parole who has been in prison for 43 years, well, almost 80 years old now. And that's okay, as long as we do the research. And that was done. I wish we would have done that with the holistic wraparound services. Regardless whether we disagree or support it or not, we should have taken the time, maybe talked to the school board, talked to our superintendent, talked to those individuals who put that plan together many years ago. I think we have to start taking time, even when we don't agree with one another, even when, you know, the author of a resolution or ordinance you don't agree with. If it's for the betterment of this city and this community, we have to slow down, even if that means we have to tell a developer that they have to wait. Because what I heard today was endangered species, and that's a concern, and it should be a concern to us. And those, again, were things not brought to our attention. We need to take the time and listen to what Mr. Harrington Hargrove has said to us over the years. He's not coming down here for nothing. We need to look and take time and see what he's talking about, because it means something to him. It means something to that community. It means something to Mr. Sharp, because they're constantly coming down here telling us the same thing over and over again. And it's okay to take time to do the right thing. And that's what I think we need to do. We don't have to agree with each other, but we need to do what's right by our residents. And that has to be the important thing that we do. And lastly, tomorrow's election day. And regardless of what issues you support, what candidates you support, tell your residents to get out and vote, and tell them to be safe. Be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. To my colleague's point, I asked this before, we said we were going to do this. A public comment scorecard where we can see how we respond and who's taking responsibility to answering the questions when people come down here. That would be fair to us on council, and especially fair to those who come and take their time. But I want to address my colleague who said we shouldn't rush and spend $14.3 million. First, it was to allocate so that communities would have the resources set aside so that they could spend them. And to say that 15 years, 12 specifically, and then the last 2 years working with the Akron Public School Board leadership, with the principal of Buchtel High School, was not taking time to put together a thorough plan is disrespectful to that community, especially when you haven't read the document. Because if you had read the document, you would see some of that stuff in there. So, you know, like I said, it's obvious the games that are played down here, but lives are being lost. Yes, we should be concerned about a bald eagle, But every week or every other week, we got young children dying on the street. And we have not passed one thing to try to help the community. The community has come down here and asked for ARPA dollars so that they can have a set budget to address the issues in their community. That's what wraparound support allows us to do, to set aside funds for each cluster so that they can address the needs in their cluster. You know, folks, as my colleague said, we got to do better. As my colleague said, we got to do better. We have not addressed the needs in specific communities. Those may look different in Ward 3. They definitely look different in Ward 4. But right now, setting aside less than 1/10 of 1% of the ARPA dollars that came into our community is not going to get it.
Is there anything else coming before council at this time? We have a motion on the floor. If there are no objections, meeting adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.